I first heard about Brave. I was working at Pixar at the time this movie got started. So I was involved in other ways at Pixar in early screenings of the movie and watching it grow into what it is now. The movie already was looking to be so much different than a typical, or than other Pixar films. It doesn't look like other Pixar films. The score is different, and I wanted the sound to be different than a Pixar film. And I've done other Pixar films, but this felt like an opportunity to do something very different.
Well, for me, it was a long process because I worked on it at Pixar, so I worked on it for about 4 or 5 years. And I was very excited about it because it was a lot of natural sounds and the potential for the magic.
The sound and the music doesn't come on until much, much later in the process, till we're getting close to wrapping the story. I came on 18 months ago. It was 6 months, half a year, you know, a whole year before we were finished. So it's fairly late in the game because most of the story is all settled down.
A fairly rare thing on this movie that worked out great. We cut bare vocals before the movie was animated, so we cut bare vocals to storyboards. Those vocals were guides for the animators to animate too. And then, of course, we would change once the animation came back. We would change it again and go back and forth. But it was a smart way of doing it, to do the sound for that aspect of the movie first and then animate to it.
In the early stages, so we're working with storyboards, and then we are putting down, you know, putting vocals in and all different sound effects, but very template and very not as extensive as you would in the final. But what we're doing is proof of concept and all the ideas and emotional content, seeing how it works.
When you're dealing with live action, you have to deal with production sound, which has a whole different set of whines, buzzes, things get off mic, they get distorted. You have a whole different set of fix-it issues. With animation, in a perfect world, and this one really was pretty much a perfect world, everything is pristinely recorded in a studio. You don't have to deal with airplanes or IMAX cameras or cloth rustle.
I always tell people who are just getting into sound, or film students who are doing sound, that to find an animated film and do sound for that, because there's nothing more fun, because you can do all sorts of crazier things. You're not limited by reality in the same way, and plus you have to do everything, which is pretty obvious in animation. It's all available for sound to be added from the smallest sounds on up.
Your Majesty, I present my heir and scion, who defended our land from the northern invaders and, with his own sword, stabbed blood out, vanquished 1,000 foes.
Clan MacGuffin! Good Majesty, I present my eldest son, who scuttled the Viking longships and with his bare hands vanquished 2,000 foes.
So on a film like this, what we were dealing with is sweetening and adding. There was these 3 red-headed triplets that in the beginning made no sound at all. So people, and some of the screens said, are they mute? Is there something wrong with them? So we recorded British kids just doing laughs and vocals and breath. And Cheryl Nardi, the fantastic dialogue editor that I worked with a lot of humor, a lot of grace, put these little vocals in for the triplets. And it took a lot of time, but it was actually really fun because you bring these characters to life.
Once his sword shattered, then chomped! Dad's leg was clean off! Down the monster's throat it went.
Oh, that's my favourite part!
Mordu has never been seen since, and is roaming the wilds, waiting his chance of revenge.
Let him return. I'll finish what I guddled in the first place.
Merida, a princess does not place her weapons on the table.
Mom!
Animated movies are making movies in slow motion, and they're also torn out of any kind of context. So I'm trying to build context back in because I'm not going to have the actor there to go, no, Mike, do it. You're a little bit more scared here than I originally said. You're not terrified, but you're just a little more scared than that, you know, and they can just try it immediately and we can see the results. In an animated film, you can't. So I have to try and predict all those things.
Everybody had a lot of vocal energy, and that's what really helped. Kelly MacDonald, who plays Merida the teenager, she accessed her inner teenager spot on.
I am Merida, firstborn descendant of Clan Dunbrog, and I'll be shooting for my own hand.
What are you doing?
Having a teenage daughter myself, she nailed her all the it's not fair, and mom, and just like that kind of stuff. She got that.
One of the things in this movie is very magical, and so you wanted this mystic and magical feeling going on with the ambiences at times, and so we would try to find exotic bird sounds and so forth to fit in, and to give it that sense. It takes place mid-10th century Scotland, and it's very rustic, and it's not all clean, and it has a raw feel to it, I mean. And so just with these primal organic sounds is creating this environment, I think was really, really great about the movie.
Some of the arrow impacts and arrow buys, and they sounded really cool for bullets, so we used a lot of the arrow stuff we recorded for Warhorse. Then we even used some of the bullet buys and bullet stuff for Brave, because, you know, it doesn't matter that it's not really an arrow or not really a bullet. But arrows are always fun to record, and finding ways, something I learned from Ben Burt, who a sound designer here, who's always been looking for the perfect arrow sound, and he has all these secrets that we tried to steal from about how to make the whoosh of the arrow have a little more whistle, a little more interest, which usually means screwing up the arrow in some way, so it would make a real specific sound when it goes by. I love arrows. Arrows, you know, are a sound designer's dream.
Oh, come on! Shit, boy! Feast your eyes! Well,
When they were pitching me the idea of just kind of encapsulating sound, this dimensional sound, I'm all, but wait a minute, the screen is there. Why would I have sounds behind me or above me or underneath me? It's going to be weird. I totally changed my mind. I recant. I draw back my previous statement, ladies and gentlemen. It is more 3D than 3D visuals because it puts you in the environment and it shoves you into that screen.
We mixed it traditionally in a 7.1 way, but we then took some time after the first mix of Brave and took all of our material as it was final mixed in here and had it available to take any sound, any line of dialogue, music, and individually in Atmos you can turn things into an object, and then you can pan more specifically around the room or in the ceiling or across the front. The front, we have 5 channels in the front, so you can do more specific and accurate dialogue and effects panning. A lot of dialogue panning works great, and especially on a big screen with 5 channels, not just 3 across the front.
There was one scene in Brave where there's a big fight and all the Scottish lords are fighting and they're throwing people around, and a lot of people go overhead and sheep go overhead. And so the fact that you can take these people and these animals and very, very carefully, you know, fling them, you totally believe the panning. There's another place where King Fergus is talking on top of a table and you see the triplets underneath the table, and they put Fergus in the ceiling. And you don't actually even realize that his voice is in the ceiling because it fits perfectly with the visuals.
One of the things I've long wanted in film theater setups are fuller range surrounds. So my first impression of Atmos was how much more the surround sounded like the fronts. Because the surrounds, there's more of them, the quality of the surrounds is better, and they're bass managed to subwoofers in the back of the theater. So more than ever before, the surrounds sound like the front. So ambiances, everything else, door creaks, arrow buys, dialogue, if you want to move it into the surround, sounds fuller and more wonderful in the back. When we took Brave and without doing any special Atmos mix at all. We played it in our Atmos theater in the Stag Theater here. It already sounded better because the surrounds were fuller range.
It's not just about the high channel, it's about that every speaker, no matter the arrangement or how many you have in whatever venue you have, operates as an individual point sound source, which again just goes into blending the acoustic environment and putting you in that space.
Sound is three-dimensional. It has been with surround sound for a long time. This is more three-dimensional. And it's because of the new vertical space, it's because of the more the fuller range surrounds, because we can place things more accurately. I might be biased, but I think 3D sound is more effective than 3D visuals. I think 3D sound can add an awful lot to a movie.
We kept talking about the dance between score and sound effects, and that it is this dance. And then sometimes you want the sound effects to drop way back and let the emotional moment of the music to take over and deliver the audience. And then at other times you want it to go back and forth like a tennis match. So they're playing off of each other. And other times you want to drop that music out and just let it be those ambience and sound effects specific. So we really have a fantastic mix. And I think that's what I'm most proud of. I mean, John Lasseter says the best mixed film we've ever heard. And a lot that has to do with that is the visuals, the visual richness of the film just accentuate all the sound work that we did with the film. That was a great, great, great accomplishment that I'm really proud of the team for being able to do.